in 2014, 15, 16, this wonderful man of God, that God was working in his life, that God was full aware of what was going on. I didn't know Jeff. I didn't know his story at that time. I was an insurance guy in Augusta, Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas. I covered 4 states. Augusta was a small part of that, but I loved the people that was there in Augusta that I got to know and got to see. And in God's timing, little did I know that many years later, I'd come to know Jeff as this guy that, man, what a story. I didn't know him as well. Robert, fast forward, being a good friend he is, I mentioned it to him because I know Robert's all over the state in his insurance business as well. And he told me, he said, reach out to him. And I want you guys to know there was no hesitation from Jeff to say yes. And I fully, with all my heart, believe that that's Jeff Collins. Yes to God. I had the opportunity to get to sit with him a little while before we got here tonight, and it just the Spirit of God exudes from him because that's who he gives credit to. So with that being said, I just want to say thanks to God. I didn't say anything earlier, but thanks to God that in 2011 I was introduced to Robert Inger. And then fast forward, I'm introduced to Jeff Collins, 2 great men of God. So with that, give Jeff a round of applause. Thank you.
I hope I don't let y'all down after that introduction. We just leave now. It's done. Guys, my name's Jeff Collins. I'm the mayor of Augusta and founder of the Second Chance Ministry of Northeast Arkansas. And I'm going to be quite blunt with you. I should be laid down on my face 24/7, 7 days a week, thanking God for what he's done in my life. I mean, I'm just going to be flat honest with you. I shouldn't be allowed to be up here to talk. I shouldn't be allowed to come up here and give my testimony. I should be flat on my face, thanking God for bringing me from the pits of hell which he brought me. Guys, I'm not a preacher. I'm not a real educated man. And I'm a kid that was raised with ADHD, and they didn't know how to fix it back in them days. They tried to beat it out of us. And I had a hearing problem as a young child, which led to not being able to pay attention in school. And when I went to school in the 60s and the early 70s, if you sat on the front row, you were the teacher's pet, which I definitely was not. And I had to sit in the back row where the cool kids was at because I wanted to be one of them, but I couldn't hear the teacher, so I fell behind. And when you fall behind in school, you learn to pick up something else, and so I relied on comedy. I tried to be the class clown. And so if I put comedy into my testimony tonight, feel free to laugh, because we're going to laugh. We will cry. We'll discuss a few hard subjects that I don't like talking about, but I've got to tell you guys, and don't be afraid to laugh at me. I'm going to say some stuff about myself. Guys, I was stupid. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I was really stupid. I've got to tell you that to let you know where I'm at. I have been known, quite frankly, like it said up there, Meth to mayor. And I'll tell you a little something how that story got started. When I was I started to give my testimony the first time in 2012, and I was scared to death to give it the first time. I was like, with the background I had come from, this is going to be good to try to tell somebody what's happened in my life. But I went to Liberty Mills in Searcy as an invite, and I give my testimony for the first time. And a little gal came up afterwards, and she was crying, and she told me, she said, "Jeff, if you can do this, from what I've heard, you've inspired me. I think I can do this." And till to this day, the little gal was so broken that day. And to this day, she has her kids back, which she swore she would never get. She's got her family back, which she swore she could never have. She got God in her life, which she swore that God would never take her back after all she's done. And that was my first person I ever give a testimony to that come up and said anything to me. And it stuck. Guys, I had a new addiction from that night, and that was telling people about God, telling people what's going to happen in my life, because it helps somebody, and I'm like, I can give back. So fast forward just a little bit, and I'd run for city council. People said, "Why don't you run for city council?" And I'm like, I'm not a politician, and I really shouldn't be involved with them. And they said, no, but you'll help your town. I'm like, we'll see. So I did. I run for city council, and I got elected city council, and then I got involved with some politicians and really didn't like them. But anyhow, I got thinking, so when mayor come along, I thought, not that I didn't trust anybody else who's running, but I was like, I don't think they're going to be able to fix this. So I figured I'd give it a try. And so I went out 1 year ahead of time, and I put my name in the pot, and I said, look, I'm running for mayor, and there's nobody else has announced yet, so you can't say I'm running against anybody. I'm actually running because I want to serve and I want to help. And won an unanimous election. It was 3 other people, and it was a very a landslide election, really. But when I was at a rally at Pleasant Plains, when I was running, I was still campaigning for mayor, and this guy come walking across the stage there, and he had on his shirt that said "From Crank to the Cross," and I'm like, "Well, that's a cool shirt, dude." I didn't know him at that time, but I got to know him named Carl Cooper, and he's a rock bottom saint. And I said, "I love that shirt," and I said, "If I win, I'm running for mayor, and if I win as mayor, I'm gonna get this shirt that says From Meth to Mayor." And then the guy standing behind me, he goes, "Oh, I love that," And so anyhow, people got to talking about, you need to talk to this guy. That's Mr. Meth to Mayor. He's Mr. Meth to Mayor after I won the election. And so the woman on Channel 7 had an article and on the newspaper, and they were talking about meth and some other stuff. And somebody got on there and said, you need to go talk to this man right here. He went from meth to mayor. And so the woman, she did. She called me and wanted to know could she come and talk to me about this. And I said, well, sure, come on in. And so she came in and sat down, and we talked for several long hours, and she was just amazed at what all I put out there. And she was like, most politicians run away from everything that you just told me, and yet you're spilling everything out. I'm not a politician. I'm telling you right now that I'm going to give you, I'm going to put it out there for you. And so and so that's how I become known as Meth the Mayor, and she run the story. Now it was funny because I didn't think a whole lot about it. And the day that they was getting ready to publish the story, the woman called me and she said, Jeff, my publisher said to call to warn you because she seemed to think that this is going to go over pretty big. Nah, whatever. I'm sure I'm going to receive some slack from it, but no, not big. This ain't going to be nothing. And she says, okay, I warned you. And so anyhow, they run the story, and oh my gosh, here come the phone calls, guys. I mean, it started, they come from California to New York, United Kingdom, all over the place. People were coming talking about this story, and I'm like, really? They're coming from everywhere, And what's really cool was Hamilton Morris with Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia on Viceland TV. He called his people, he did. His people called me because I don't have people. And so they called and he said, Hamilton's interested in wanting to talk to you about stuff like this. And then we talked a little bit, and he said, are you interested in coming to New York? I'm like, nope. No. And like, well, you don't want, I said, well, yeah. I said, but let me explain something to you. Recovery in New York is not like recovery in Augusta, Arkansas. I said, if you want the real story, if you want to see what we do, you and your people get on a plane and y'all come down here and we'll show you what we done. And they agreed, guys. And so they came down, followed me around for 2 days. We got opened up a church there, and we had a rally, and it was pretty big. And it's season 3, episode 2. It's Hamilton Morris positive methamphetamine story, and it was pretty cool for that to happen for no country meth addict like myself for something like that to have happened in his life. And so that's what started the snowball of everything of getting me to where I'm at today. However, the real testimony of the story is, guys, when I didn't come from a broken home. I told you a little bit about myself as far as the ADHD and the trouble hearing and what happened when I got in school. I didn't come from an abusive home. There was no drugs or no alcohol. We were farmers and we were truckers, and we farmed quite a bit of land. And when you farm around 16,000 acres of land, you don't have time to go to church on Sundays. And so, but I remember a revival when I was 12 years old, and I went with an aunt and uncle, and this preacher that night was preaching to nobody but Jeff, it seemed like. It's kind of like somebody had went and told that preacher what Jeff had done, And so I'm looking around, and I look back up, well, that preacher's looking at Jeff, and then I'm starting to feel some things, and then for some reason that 12-year-old child stood up, and I went down and I talked to this preacher, And guys, I'm gonna tell y'all something. I received the most wonderful gift at the age of 12. I took God into my life, you know, and I felt that. I really felt it, you know, and however sincere I was in accepting him into my life, the part about being obedient and being the Christian and doing what you're supposed to do and still trying to learn, somewhere I missed that in the conversation. You know, I didn't quite get that, but still I had God. You know, I had got God. And by the time I was 14, I had pretty much forgot about that 12-year-old child that had walked down the aisle. And being a farming family, I was into my own cash crops at the age of 14. And so things, you know, went on. And so I tried to do the right thing in high school, and though I fell further and further behind. And when I got out, I wanted to serve my country. So I did. And I went and served my country in the Army. And then when I come back to Augusta, I was sitting there and I was watching, you know, we're a farming and trucking family. And I'm like, I'm out here working 7 days a week, y'all. And these truck drivers are coming home on Thursday night. Some of them come on Friday. And I'm seeing them all standing around the shop on Saturday having a good time, you know. And I'm like, wait a minute. You know, they don't leave till Sunday. I'm like, why am I working 7 days a week on this farm? When we've got trucks, I need to be driving a truck. I can be off on weekends. So I went to Dad and I said, I kind of think I want to get on the trucking side. He said, why? And I'm like, well, I want some time off. And he kind of laughed. I didn't know why at that time. He said, so you want a truck? Yeah. So we got a truck. Jeff got a truck. I didn't know that when you come in on weekend, you had to work on the truck. You had to change the tires. You had to do all that stuff in order to go out the next week. So I really didn't get no days off. I just went from farming to trucking, which was kind of okay at that time because I wasn't stuck on the farm. You know, at least I was going places. But then I got introduced to Miss Crystal Meth out on the road. And I had started running across country, and I had a buddy that would drop me some off. And he said, here, you know, we were grain haulers, so when you get paid by the load, every extra load is extra money. And it started out good, man. I could smoke me a line, smoke me a little bit in the morning, and I could run all day long. I'm like, ooh, I got an extra load. You know, we was coming down this part of the world, down in Hope and Prescott and Nashville. That's where we was feeding the chickens all the time. You know, we was coming down. I'm like, I got to have them extra loads. I got to have them extra loads. And it got good to me. And so I got to where from using to work to where after several years, I was working to use. And then we got out of farming, and thank gosh, and we stayed in trucking for a little while until I was standing in this big old shop, looking around, empty shop, at one tire on a wheel that was left, and I'm like, darn it. When I sell that tire, no, let me take that back. When I trade that tire and wheel for this 8-ball, I'm done. I'm never doing no more dope again. I said that to myself after I've done got rid of Peterbilt and all this other. You know, I'm like, really? You know, you wait till the last tire's gone, then you decide you've had enough. Well, I was lying to myself, you know. So what I done then was I just decided to work for people that didn't have to worry about drug testing. I could cheat on drug testing. So I kept down on the lower end job to where I could cheat on everything and squeeze myself by. And I'm not going to sit up here and give the devil any credit of what he done. He destroyed everything that there ever was in my life that was worth anything at that time. He, with my help, took it away from me. And so, you know, I had never had a problem. I would stay up hours upon hours trying to convince myself I didn't need God. You see, the devil's such a liar, and I was so weak that the devil had come to me and he said, look, Jeff, what you're doing out here in this earth, in this world, in your flesh, that is hell. You're going to go somewhere. You're going to die. You're not going to stay on this earth forever. And you're going to go to one of two places. You're going to heaven or you're going to hell. Do you want to come and do what you've been doing for the last 20 years and all this fun you're having? And he got my attention. Like, really? So hell is like this. I've heard the term hell on earth, so now we're getting somewhere. So, like, So I didn't want nothing to do with this God. I didn't want nothing to do with this 12-year-old boy that had talked to a preacher. I didn't want none of that no more. So now I've got to spend several years trying to figure out a way to convince myself, but not all upstairs, how there cannot be a God. There's got to be a way, if I could just sit down and figure this out, that if I could just make myself believe it on paper, that's all I need. And I tried and I tried. I'd go as far as to just screaming and crying out, cussing, until I couldn't talk or cuss or just anything else to try to get God to just make sure he was out of my life. Joke with my friends, which they say, you're joking, but no. I wanted reservations at the racetrack in hell. I wanted to go to hell. I didn't want none of this, guys. I loved what I was doing out in the world. I loved drugs that much. I loved them more than my family. I had went to my wife so many times. Now, I ain't raising no hand, but I didn't just get a little bit high when I got high, guys. When I got high, we cooked batches, and not little ones, and we done until we just couldn't do no more. And then you just done it to get rid of all of it. And I would get so high that I would just get ill. And when I would I'd just get sick. I'd just get falling out sick. And so many times I'd go to my wife and I'd say, Leslie, something's wrong. Yeah, you need to go to sleep. Right, okay, So, but not that night. I said, she said, I'm gonna call your mother. Now guys, I'm 60 years old and I've still got both my parents on this earth, and you talking about a blessing, man. And so she calls my mother. Now the family we were partners with in farming, their son is the founder of R-Care. If y'all seen any of the R-Care health places in Arkansas, and that's the family we partnered with when we were farming. And so the Dr. Collier, my mother was his personal secretary from the whole time he was a doctor, practicing doctor. And so she said, Jeff, I'm coming to get you, and we're going by Doc's house. Now, it wasn't unusual for Jeff to go by Doc's house. I mean, we would go in the back door of the clinic in them days just because we were too busy to have to go around and wait and all, So anyhow, so she said, I'm taking you by Doc's house. And I didn't want to argue with Mom. I said, okay. So we went by. She picks me up. Well, we didn't stop at Doc's house. We go on by. And she had my sister, had my sister with her, which I didn't understand at that time either. But so they pick us, and we go right by Doc's house and we go to the police station. Now, my mother just happened to be the police commissioner of this town at this time. When you are a meth addict and your mother's a police commissioner, you have like 2 good points with your mother, 999,000 bad points, because she knows everything bad. And I know she knows everything bad, but anyhow, so we're not going to talk to Mama about that one tonight. But anyhow, so we pull up at the police station. There's an ambulance, 2 cops, 2 EMTs, Mama. And so I'm like, I really want to fight these people. I'm like, you're not putting me in that ambulance, but I was so sick, and they were so many of them, and Mama. So, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get in this ambulance. Now, they put me in this ambulance, and these gals in this ambulance is working pretty hard from the moment I get in there. And this ambulance is driving so fast, and this thing is moving, and I am giving them gals in the back of that ambulance some type of crap, y'all, because first off, nothing's wrong with me. I know what's wrong with y'all 2 gals, and I can fix y'all, but y'all don't want to hear it, and y'all trying to fix me, but I know what's wrong with me. And what I tried to convince them was, see, between Augusta and Searcy, where the hospital's at, there's a little town called Ball. And I knew some people. And I'm like, look, lady, if you will just go by these people's house, you got to cut them blinking red lights off, because they're going to be looking out the blinds, and if they see these lights, they're not going to open the door for me. So I'm like, you got to cut these. But they didn't listen. They went on to the hospital, and so they pulled up in the, and then they run me up into this room, and things are really happening in this room, guys. And when you're watching TV and they want you to just look like one little thing, they blur everything out around it. Well, you got to look at just one thing. Well, I'm watching this guy walk down this hall to me, and I can't see anything but him. And I'm like, no, here, everybody's coming to say something to Jeff, And so here he comes, and he gets right up next to the bed, and he goes, Mr. Collins, you're having a heart attack. And whoa. Now, me and you've got problems. So I commenced to telling him that, no, well, first off, I'm 46 years old at this time. I'm not ready to quit doing dope. I'm not ready to quit doing all this stuff I'm doing. You're going to tell me to quit smoking cigarettes. No, we're not going to talk about this right now at all. And he's not listening to it because, well, I'm having a heart attack, they said. So they're doing what they're supposed to do. And things are really happening in this room. And guys, I always knew, even though I would look in the mirror sometimes and I would say, I don't want to be that person I'm looking at, and turn right around and drop down and do a line off the sink after I looked in the mirror, but I mean, I never really liked the person, that I was looking at. And I always knew deep in my heart that I really did have a problem. I always knew that it was my fault, but I wasn't about to admit that to nobody. And yet on this night, I'm noticing that they're bringing my family into this room. And about the same time, this woman to my right says, Mr. Collins, if you'd like to speak to your family, you might want to say something to them now. Now, you would think somebody with a little common sense, left me out, would have thought about this a little bit. Jeff, you've been told you're having a heart attack. The ambulance didn't drive this fast for nothing. The doctor didn't get this far for nothing. They didn't do all this in this room for nothing. They're bringing your family in. They're telling you need to talk to them. For Christ's sake, man up. Do what you're supposed to do. I done what I want to do. I looked at that woman and asked her why. And she said, well, I'm fixing to give you a shot, and if you might not be able to do a whole lot of talking. Jeff was no longer laying there on that bed. I would turn back into Mr. Meth, Mr. Junkie. Somebody just offered to give me a shot. I asked her, completely forgetting about my family. I asked her, what's in that thing? And she named off a few things that are in it. Maybe I can get high off a couple of them, And it's going to be a free one. You think of that when you get the bill. But, I'm like, hit me. I know all about this. So she did. Guys, the devil lied to me. I didn't get high when she hit me. I was somewhere different. It was loud. I'm a product of the 80s as far as growing up, kind of. And I used to go to all these concerts at Barton Coliseum, and the speakers were so large, and I'd get right down next to them speakers. I didn't want to hear the music. I knew it. I wanted to feel that music come off the speakers. I wanted that music to push me, And where I was at this night was that loud, a million times louder. And yet you could still, in all the roar and all the sounds and all the noise, you could still hear individuals crying, screaming, cussing, and the smell. Guys, one night I run up on a guy that had been in a wreck. A couple guys that wanted T-bone an old Chevy on that side impact where the Chevy used to flame up, and a guy was trapped in his truck. We couldn't get him out. We smelt that night. And if you've ever smelt real burning flesh, you'll never forget it, and there's nothing like it. And where I'm at this night, the smell is so obsolete I can't explain the smell other than if you could take a million burning fleshes and just burn them hotter. I don't know how to explain that smell, but the sound and the smell. And guys, when I was in service, when I joined the service, I really had aspirations of being of all I could be. I know the Army says that, but I mean, I really did want to be that. I mean, so when I joined, I was like, I'm pretty wild, so let's just enjoy this while we're here. So, we tried the air assault and the air, airborne, and we done the mountaineers. We done all that stuff. I mean, I rode my motorcycle when I was young. I mean, I never really was afraid of death. I never just thought about dying, and I just didn't care how I lived and what edge I lived on. It just never occurred to me that there was consequences to your actions. You're just going to go, and it'll happen. But guys, this night, when the sound is so loud and the smells and everything, and I know I'm standing right where I wanted to be. I mean, I'm right there, guys. It's right in front of me, and it's right there for my taking. And for some reason, the only thing I can think of, I am so scared. I am terrified. I mean, I've done everything that had went through my junky mind, everything that had pushed me into the funnel of just being the best junkie you could be, had all went away, and all I could think of was, I've got to get out of here. I don't know where I'm at. I've got to go. I'm seeing things. I'm remembering things that happened. None of them are good. I'm remembering the bad stuff. Things I said to people, things I've done. All this is going. It's like a whirlwind in my head. And all I can think of was getting out of here. And for some reason, all I can think of was Jesus. And I say, help me, Jesus. And I open my eyes. And guys, I'm looking up at a doctor that's looking down at me. His eyes are this big. I just thought things was happening in this room then. Things really started going on. I mean, they were pounding on my chest, and I later found out they were popping that stuff off of me, popping it back on. My chest felt like I had been beat by baseball bats. They were, somebody had a hold of my hand, and they were squeezing, and they were pinching my leg, and they pinched my neck and something else. And that woman said, I'm pretty sure it was the same woman who gave me that shot. But she was saying, if you can feel my hand, if you can feel this, squeeze my hand. I squeezed it. She done something else. You feel that? Squeeze my hand. I squeezed it. She done something else. I said, I feel it. She goes, well, you can talk. Guys, I was so rude when she said that. I was so rude to them people before that I actually thought I bit my tongue just a little bit, because I thought, did they cut my tongue out or something? Why am I not supposed to be able to talk? Because I'm not going to lie. Had I been a doctor and somebody laying down there as rude to me as I was to that doctor, nobody looked on his tongue, mouth, I kind of thought about that. I'm like, oh goodness, I might have said the wrong thing. That doctor might have got me, but he did not. My tongue was still there. And they come to find out they were popping. They popped all this stuff back on me, popped it back on me. After a little while, I found out that I'd been laying there dead for 6 minutes and 21 seconds. I had been They had been shocking me for over 4 minutes. The doctor had told the woman to get the paperwork for cashing this man's chips in. And she turned around to get the paperwork. The doctor turned back around and just for some reason popped me one more time. And that's when I woke up. That's why his eyes were so big. And while they asked me the questions about feeling this and me being able to talk, they were very surprised that anybody that had been flat for over 4 minutes that long was even going to walk, talk, do anything like that again. They were very concerned on what had happened. I had major damage to the back and to the bottom of my heart. And they kept me strapped down to this bed, and they swore up down that I was fixing to have another heart attack, which is what you really want to hear after you've just been through all that. And so they had led me all down there, and they done all this, and it finally slowed down in there a little bit, and I remember the doctor saying, man, you're a lucky young man. You're a lucky young man. I bought luck for a little while. It took me a little while. I thought, yeah, I'm lucky. I'll buy that. So come to find out that the two guys at the end of the bed that were arguing, that I thought was fixing the fist fight, they were arguing over the machine because they were swearing up and down that machine that was so flat, it's not going to be like that. You know, even the kicker, I mean, guys, this is how God works. Even the brain was bouncing up and down. And I guarantee you, for years, it wasn't bouncing like that. It was, you know, I mean, so I mean, when God does it, He does it, guys. But you know, they and so that's why they were popping new stuff back on. They argued and put a new machine on me to make sure it wasn't a machine, and it was kind of funny because after a few days, they brought a person in to talk to me to ask if I'd seen anything. I'm like, no, you know, I mean, I'm going to tell you all this, you know, like 2 days later. And I'm, yeah, right, you know. So really, you know, I've been trying to convince people for the last 20 years that $20 was really for gas. You know, I mean, you know, yeah, I need a pack of cigarettes. You know, no, I mean, $20, you know, anyhow. So, you know, I mean, it's I wasn't about to tell people all this stuff. I mean, they're going to laugh me right out of the hospital, you know. So they finally brought my family back in, and guys, I'm gonna tell you something. I put a lot of demons to rest. I've apologized to a lot of people, and I mean, I was a very, very, very bad person, very cruel person to a whole lot of people. But I don't think I could. I can't. Guys, I get up early in the morning a lot of times, not just because it's my favorite time of the day, but it's because that's the only time I can really just be alone and ugly cry for the stupid stuff I've done to people, you know? And this right here is one of them, man, because just like 2 hours before they brought my family back in for the second time, I noticed for the first time the looks on their face, how scared they were, you know? My God, what had I done to my family? My 9-year-old daughter at that time, the looks on their face, guys. But you know, just a couple hours before that, they were walking into that room with an opportunity to say some words to Jeff. And they got to witness Jeff, their husband, father, son, brother. Look at them, not even acknowledge them as family. When you're laying there on a hospital bed, been told you're having a heart attack. I wouldn't even look at them and acknowledge them. And I'm worried about this woman giving me another hit. How do you bury that demon? How do you get rid of that? The last thing my family could have seen was a dying junkie laying there on the bed with an opportunity to at least say goodbye, and I wouldn't. I felt in my body different. I knew something was different. I had just been through quite a bit. I was thinking maybe that's why I feel different. I wasn't real sure of this feeling I was feeling. I convinced my family after a couple more hours to go home. Not always to convince them to go home. You'll be somewhere the next morning. When you've told them that so many times and 14 days later you show up, you know, I mean, but I convinced them to go home, that I would be here the next morning. So they finally leave, and I'm finally with nobody but me and one nurse that was sitting a pretty good ways down at the end watching for my next heart attack. And I've had a chance to reflect. And I got to thinking about a bunch of stuff, you know. Why was I the lucky one? Because I've known some good people that had passed away that didn't deserve to die. I was a leech on society. I was nothing. And yet I was the lucky one. Yet these good people that was actually contributing, raising their kids, being good to their wife, they're dead, gone. I mean, come on, man. So now I'm starting to feel guilty. But, you know, laying alone, giving time to think. And I got to thinking about the events of that night and why would I be the lucky one? I'm like, wait a minute now. No. We're going to back up a little bit on this. How did my wife recognize that? I told y'all whenever I crashed, I got sick. What nobody knew, this was a Sunday night, and what nobody knew was I hadn't been high since Wednesday. I wasn't crashing. It wasn't by choice. Oh, no, 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 no. Me and another guy decided we was both going to cook batches together. I learned to cook one half, he learned to cook the other half. We'd always stay clean. We'd never go get no dirty dough for nobody. We always heard that if you learned to cook one batch, you was more hooked to the cook than you was the dough. So we didn't want to get that. We wanted to stay separate, you know, which will allow me not to do that like he could. But anyhow, but I couldn't get him up during them 3 days that I wanted to get high to get the other stuff to finish making it. I wasn't high. And my mother, she's got millions of phone calls on Jeff. How did she recognize that night that there was something different? And an ambulance in Woodruff County in Augusta, we've got 2 ambulances. We've got that nursing home, and in Woodruff County, somebody's always going to the hospital from the nursing home on Sunday night. I think that's what they feed them on Sunday. I don't know. but I mean, to have an ambulance right there in town, you know, and Miss Terry McCabe that still works on the ambulance to this day, she recognized it. She would tell you, Jeff, you were dying when you got in that ambulance. She recognized it. That's why she was driving so fast. It had nothing to do with my mouth. She's used to my mouth. She knew me all my life. And the guy who I had to try not to look at that come told me I was having a heart attack, was the heart surgeon. On a Sunday night, him and his team were there because another guy had come in the hospital thinking he was having a heart attack and he was high on meth. And when he had to give him words that we got another possible heart attack coming from Augusta, and his exact word was probably another guy high on meth. But since me and my team are here, we'll wait. He was absolutely right. There's a full-blown meth addict on the way, brother. And why did that doctor turn around and pop me one more time? Now I'm thinking about all this, and this is coming to me now, y'all. I'm like, oh, no, this is getting good now. I'm crying like a baby on the table. It's because God never forgot about that 12-year-old child that walked down that aisle. You know, when I hollered for him out in the middle of the strongest storm of my life, and I hollered for God, he said my son finally hollered, and he come off that mountain, and he went to throwing down stuff at me, and he didn't just give me no crumb because of how bad I've been. He gave me the best of everything he had, and he said, I've got to have you now, son. And I'm crying like a baby, and I swore right then, I said, God, you're going to laugh. I want to talk to you. This is Jeff. I want to talk to you, God. I believe you just worked in my life. And I fell asleep, laying on that table, crying, talking to God. But guys, I'm going to tell you something. When I woke back up that next morning, I have not known what it felt like to be an addict not one time. I have no desires. I have nothing. I don't know nothing. And I told God that day, that night on the table, I said, God, I don't deserve for you to just come in here and take this all from me. I don't deserve that. But I'm weak, and I'm going to have help. In order for me to get through this, you've got to help me with my addictions. I was so scared, guys. I was so scared to stop doing everything that I loved. But I'm going to tell you something. You know, I like Isaiah 40:31. I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit. Those that believe in him and go with him will fly like wings on eagles. You know, that night when I was facing the biggest storm of my life, and I called out to Jesus. You know, I'm not real sure how many times the eagle's mentioned in the Bible. Somewhere, I think one time I read 90 something maybe. But anyhow, you know, an eagle, when they're facing the storm, they don't run from a storm. They don't go hide from it. An eagle will go to the highest point of its territory, and it will turn and it will face the storm. And when the storm is at its fiercest, the eagle will spread its wings and let the storm lift it up above it, and the eagle will soar above the storm until the storm's gone. Mm-hmm. When I asked Jesus that night for help, all I had to do was just let go. Let him take the wheel. It's when my family came back, next couple of days there through the hospital, and you know, the very next day I'm like, you know, I was up real early, of course, in the hospital, and I was like, God, I think you've done something in my life, and I'm not from Missouri or nothing, but do you mind showing me a little something? Maybe is this true? Or, did you really just do something in my life? And so, of all the friends I had, the two most godly men I know showed up at the hospital that morning. And none of them would have ever came to visit me before. One of them was my brother-in-law, and the other one was a pastor at First Baptist Church in Augusta. He came over there because my wife was very faithful to the church. She faithful. Jeff wasn't. Jeff would go to church when my daughter sang. Jeff would go to church on Mother's Day, Easter, and Christmas. Jeff would sit in the parking lot and get high just to get enough nerve before he'd go in church on them days. The preacher came over that day because he had a member, faithful member, whose husband was in the hospital. It was his duty and his honor to come to serve her. He didn't know that it was a calling he answered for Jeff. And my brother-in-law, the old Terry, he stops by to check on me. I've been just as worthless to the family as I could be, but there he was. None of these friends that seemed to come by my house whenever I had pockets for dope or money, they never showed up. And I knew I had it whooped, guys, when I was on the day that I was waiting on the process. If you want to make $1 billion, if you could speed up the discharge process of the hospital, man. But anyhow, so when I was waiting on the speedy discharge process, I got up and walked to the window, and I was looking out the window of the hospital, and I see these two women walk out of the hospital, and they were getting in them purses. I told my wife, I said, I'll let you know in just a few minutes whether I'm ever going to want another cigarette or not. And sure enough, they pulled 2 cigarettes out. That one woman had a regular one. Second woman had one of them real long, skinny ones, Virginia Slim or something like that, about that long, real skinny cigarette, and about big as that wire right there. And so they smoked cigarette, and that one woman, she finished hers up. She's like, so she jumped her another one off her butt. She smoked 2 cigarettes, that long cigarette one. And so I watched 2 women smoke 3 cigarettes, and I didn't have the desire for it. And I knew I had it whooped right then, guys. I knew God had done something in my life. And, we get to the house, and I told you about how faithful my wife was. Well, now the devil, just because you let God in your life and you're all God and you're all glory and you're everything there is, he ain't went away. That devil's still coming after you. If you was one of his favorite people, he's mad because you're gone, and he's going to come back at you. And if you're weak like Jeff, he's going to pick any little thing to make you mad to get back at you, and he did. So I come to the house. It's a Wednesday when I get home from the hospital, and my wife's Sunday school class, we're recording this on. Oh, Lord, I got to talk about my wife's Sunday school class. So anyhow, my wife's Sunday school class brought us some food over. And so they brought it in. Man, I'm smelling it when it comes through. I'm like, I've been hospital fooding it, I'm like, oh, yes. So they bring it in. My wife, she fixes me a plate. Ain't fixed me another one since, bro. But she fixed me a plate, brought it to me, and it's fried chicken and all that stuff, Baptists do it, fried chicken. So anyhow, so they brought me all that food, and I'm like, oh, yeah. And so I go to digging in that food. I'm like, I'm looking around, Leslie's eating. I'm like, I can't taste nothing. I can't taste nothing, y'all. And I look at her and she goes, oh, that's healthy food. That's heart healthy food. I'm like, what? I couldn't taste nothing. That was terrible, y'all. And so I'm like, it was really good though. So it was terrible, y'all. And so my wife, she knew, she's like, well, Jeff probably ain't gonna like this healthy food. So she knew I love chocolate ice cream. She said, well, Jeff, I got you some chocolate ice cream if it'll help you. And I'm like, thank you. So I got me a bowl of that chocolate ice cream. I took a bite. And I'm like, what in the world? Oh, that's heart healthy ice cream. You got to be kidding me, y'all. I put that bowl in the sink, y'all. This was at nighttime on Wednesday night. I put that bowl in the sink, got up the next morning, it ain't melted. They call it Meth ice cream. So anyhow, so now Jeff being weak, and the devil's like, hey, Jeff. What? He said, you gonna let them church folks bring you some more bad chicken up here and you ain't gonna say nothing about it? What? You know, he's over here. You know, like, what? And he said, yeah, that's them church folks. They're gonna bring you bad chicken. Well, where were they at before, Jeff? Wait a minute, what? Where were they at before? They're gonna wait until you almost die, then they're gonna bring you some bad chicken, try to finish you off. Come on, Jeff. I mean, I'm like, well, you're right. Where has my church been? You know? Well, church had been there. The church had tried to reach out to me. The church folks had tried to talk to me. I didn't want nothing to do with them, you know? It wasn't them. But, I done got mad because he done told me. Bad chicken, you know? So, from Thursday, I done decided I'm mad at my church. And I've been a member of this church since the 70s. Guys, I wasn't faithful for a long time, but I was a member, you know? And so, I'm like, no, come Sunday, I'm going to let y'all have it. So I don't ever write nothing down or do notes or none of this stuff, but I memorized me a good speech from Thursday to Saturday night. I had it memorized. I'm going to my church Sunday morning. I'm going to let them have it. So I walked up to them steps Sunday morning. When you go up First Baptist Church, go in the big door, you go left to right. I went to the right. Look, nobody was in that back seat. Plop down right there in that back seat. My arm, I'm waiting for it to start. As soon as the preacher says you got any announcement, you betcha. And so I'm sitting there, and of course, here comes Miss Linnell. Hey, Jeff, how are you, honey? I'm so glad to see you. I knew you'd come home. Linnell, I'm trying to be mad. A couple other people come up and, you know, talk to me, you know, none of them. Of all times, why couldn't somebody at least come up and say, well, what are you doing here? Or, you're in my seat. Why couldn't somebody have just done something? No. They're always nice. And so I'm like, well, if y'all going to be this nice, I'm not going to mess your service up right at the start. But after y'all sing some songs and you send them kids to children's church, good time. Well, they sing some real good songs and they send the kids off. I'm like, pretty good crowd here today. I'm not going to ruin it for them, but when it's over with, I'm just going to tell them how I feel and I'll never come back. That's the best way to do it. Pastor preached on forgiveness. Guess where Jeff was at the end of service? Up there at that altar. Guys, the church loved me. They loved the hell right out of me, and they loved me right back in, and it's such a blessing, you know, to be welcomed back, to have a church family that will welcome you back. Man, that makes all the difference in the world, you know. And that's one thing I can say about that church. Very loving. And you know, a lot of people kept, my heart doctor especially, we would have these conversations about luck and God quite often, and which was weekly when I was going there for a while. And then after like 3 months, I think it was, they done another ultrasound on me because of the damage to the back and the bottom of my heart. And so the heart doctor comes walking in, and he's holding 2 sets of the x-ray pictures. And he said, he kind of looks at me, and I knew he was fixing to say something because of that look. And I was getting ready to come back with a real fiery comeback, you know. And he goes, you might be on something with this God thing here. I'm like, ooh, how do I come back with that, you know? And so he showed me. He said, here's what I'm talking about. You could clearly see significant damage to the back and bottom of my heart. Picture number 1. 3 months later, small place. All you can see is a small spot. So so you know, he does literally heal the brokenhearted. You know, he can fix it. So God, I made a promise to him that I would go anywhere, and it was funny because I used to chew gum everywhere I went when I talked, and it kind of kept my mouth from being dry to an extent. But I always say a little prayer before I get up and speak, and in that prayer, I always ask God if you will just let me walk up there without falling down, and let me speak without spitting my gum out. I'll say anything you want me to say. You just put it on me, and I'll put it out there. And to this date, unless I've been booked somewhere else, I've never said no. I'm not going to say no when it comes time. I can tell you that. And I've never charged a dime. I wouldn't charge a dime to tell people this story right here. I am in the process. I never realized how dumb I was until I tried writing this book. You know, you can't write a book with 4-letter words. You've got to use some bigger words every now and then. So I've got to get some help somewhere down the line. But guys, God has been so good to Jeff. He restored all my family. He gave everything back. He took this old meth addict right here, guys, and he took it and turned it into a story, you know. And that's one thing right there, guys. You know, the stigma when I first started telling this story in 2012, people were somewhat ashamed. You could go places and people were like, meth addict, you know. Yes, we made our own trails. You can go through anywhere in the Mid-South of the United States, and you can see where meth has been just like a tornado has been. You can tell beyond a shadow of a doubt where meth has been just like a tornado has been down through there. But I'm going to tell you something, guys. There's one thing. You know, it's funny because Hamilton Morris, when I asked him, I said, how did you come up from New York City with Jeff Collins in Augusta, Arkansas? And he said, well, I wanted to do something on meth. He said, and so when I got to doing some research on meth and he got to talking to folks, and everybody that he would talk to that was 100% guarantee that they were clean and never going back again, the one thing they had in common was God. And so he went to Googling meth, something else, and God, and whose name popped up? Jeff Collins. Of all things, of all people. And so that's how I got into that story. But that's God, you see, because God takes somebody, you know, you could go out here and you could go to the library and you can get you a book on how to cure meth, and you can go talk to a bunch of folks and they don't want to hear it. But you go sit down with somebody and you tell them your life experience and you tell them what you've done, especially somebody that knows, you know, when they know you've been in that fire, when they know you've been in that pit, and they know how worthless you really was because, I mean, look, you know, we made this bed. That's what changes lives right there. This place right here is what changes lives. You said 7 people 2 years ago?
Yes, sir.
What, 60, 70 in here tonight? You know, I mean, only God, you know? I mean, look, we can overcome. And sometimes we overcome loud and big. I mean, you just got to get out there and do it. I will say this, however, you know, people say after I got clean, we'll give him 2 weeks. You know, oh, we'll give him 2 months. No, we're going to give him 6 months. You know, guys, it's pretty simple. I know a man in the wagon buying business. If you sell your wagon to God, you have nothing to fall off of. It's that simple. If you will sell out, if you will get yourself as addicted to God as you are to any substance, then you cannot fail. You can't fail. We've got to learn that, yes, when we fall down, we've got to get back up. But it's not okay to fall down. When you fall down, you fail. You fail again. But get up and keep trying. By all means, we've got to stop saying, oh, it's okay, you failed. No, you failed. You messed up. It's not okay to mess up. But we're human. We are human. We still live in our flesh. We're still on this earth. Like I said, I'm trying to write a book. I hope to have it out by 24, sometime in 24. If you follow me on Facebook, if you're expecting to see a preacher, you're going to be upset. If you're expecting to see a man that always walks like God, you're going to be upset. Had I known that night on the table that God was fixing stuff that night, really fixing stuff, I would have asked for a little bit more. I would have said, God, while we're at it, can we fix my mouth? Can we fix my anger? A couple people, but we're not going to talk about them. But, you know, I'm still human. I still fail daily. But I've got the ultimate healer in my corner. I've got the ultimate provider in my corner. I've got the one and only thing that can keep me going every day. And guys, just don't ever give up. Don't ever give up, man. Whatever you do, and don't be afraid to tell your story. I'll answer any questions anybody got. If there's any questions, shake hands, whatever you want to do. I'm about out here now. So, guys, I thank y'all so much for allowing me to stand up here and tell this story. It's an honor. I tell it 2 or 3 times a week. And I was blessed. This past month was Recovery Month, and I was able to go in every ACC accredited prison in Arkansas this year. So it was. Once again, thank y'all very much.
Wasn't that amazing? We serve an amazing God. Amen. We want to give you an opportunity. If anybody here wants to come up to the altar, you need prayer for anything, you need counseling for anything, we're here. If you just need a hug, we're here. I want to ask my counselors, if you will, to come up, come forward, and you can pick any of these counselors here to pray with you. Every one of them are capable of praying. And no matter what it is, it may be a sickness or whether you're going through, whether you're having addiction or whatever, God can take care of it. Amen? Amen. Remember, if you need to go, we'll be back next week. Same Holy Ghost place, same Holy Ghost time. God bless you.